Hey guys, General Stargazer here. I've been on and off Sisi this last week doing a bit of research on the new drifter battleships, and I thought I'd share my findings so far. Just as a pre-warning, Sisi is getting patched a lot at the moment. Things are being added on a daily basis. The bulk of what I'm about to show you here recorded on Tuesday the 10th of February. Today is the 13th of February. There's a couple of things that have already changed and been updated, but I'll show you them in the video. So currently on Tranquility, we have all seen the unidentified structures that have been appearing. They're cloaked at the moment. However, over on Sisi, the structures are uncloaked and fully viewable. In some systems, the unidentified structures are also joined by unidentified wormholes, as you can see here. These wormholes aren't, as far as I've experienced, traversable yet by us. That's not to say that that's always going to be the case. It's just at the moment you can't go anywhere with them. I've noticed that the combination of the unidentified wormholes and the unidentified structures being a system seems to lead to the drifter battleships appearing in the system. With just the structures in the system, I've only ever come across the circadian sleepers. I haven't actually seen the battleships. That's not to say that they're not going to spawn, it's just that that's the only way that I've actually seen them spawn at the moment. It's probably also worth mentioning that at the start of this week, I only ever came across one drifter battleship in the system at any time, either at the wormhole or at the structure. But by the end of the week, I was coming across anywhere up to 3 battleships being on in the system at any time. So I don't know what the final result's going to be. That's just how it is at the moment. There was a lot of vague information with regards to what the drifter battleships were. They were initially unskinned, just models in space with no real descriptions. But at the start of this week, a lot more information about them was fleshed out. They're shown at the moment piloted by someone, in the same way that if you'd show information on a ship, we can see who the pilot is. The pilot names that I've come across so far for the different ships is Artemidius Tyrannos and Apollo Tyrannos, which seem to be the name or designation for the female and male pilots respectively. As of today at least, the models for the ship pilots are fully fleshed out. If you do a show information on the ship, you will see a character portrait, and if you view the full model, you do get a full Jovian, well, what appears to be a Jovian male and a Jovian female body, which seems to go along with the actual description of them in-game. They also seem to be a part of what's listed as the Drifters Alliance, while being in a actual corp called the Vigilant Tyrannos. Each have their own information. What I'll do is I've taken a screenshot of all the information and I will put it in the description for this video. I'd recommend having a read, as it does seem to be some interesting background story. A couple of observations that I've made is that they seem to be capable of traversing the unidentified wormholes in each of the system, as you can see here. It appeared that based on what you could see, that if you look through the centre of the wormhole, it looks that the system they were jumping to was Thera. Just based on the nebula that you can see in it. Now, on the Sisi, you have the advantage that you have the /move_me command that was just introduced not too long ago, and you could be instantly moved to another system, and Thera was one of the systems that was listed. So I did move myself to Thera, and I headed to the epicenter at least, but it didn't seem to be that was the out location. That's not to say that is the out location. Just when I looked around in Thera, I couldn't specifically see that if that was the location they were going to. Similar to the circadian sleepers, the drifter battleships don't actually attack unless you attack them first. They also seem to remember your ship, so if you warp away, they will chase you, and they will attack you, and they will kill you. That is to say that if you are killed by them, and you dock up, you get another ship, and you go back, they won't treat you as aggressive again until you begin attacking them. They also seem to sit fairly quietly in the system. They only really warp occasionally between the unidentified structures and the unidentified wormhole. Normally they seem to come out of the wormhole, warp over to the structure, spend time at the structure, then walk back to the wormhole. They then spend 5-10 minutes at the wormhole before eventually going towards the wormhole and re-entering it. From what I've seen as well so far, is that while the unidentified structures can exist in the system, I haven't seen an unidentified wormhole alone in a system. Right, the combat element of the ships when you engage them is a little bit on the scary side. The first thing you'll notice is when you lock the ship that they have a blue shield layer. This is like a secondary shield. From what I've noticed, this also seems to be the trigger for when the battleship is going to use its super weapon. Once the shield depletes, your target lock's broken on the ship, and 2 to 3 seconds later, it locks and it will fire a Doomsday at you. Now, I purposely did all my testing in Battleships and smaller with the idea that not everyone will probably be wanting to use a capital or even be capable of using a capital to kill them. And pretty much for each battleship, no matter how resilient I built the tank, passively or actively, I couldn't get anything high enough to survive the Doomsday. So I started looking at other options. Now, the first option I looked at was to bring in a rattlesnake. It does have a good passive tank on it, and obviously has the added bonus that you can use drones on the target. I wanted to see if the drifter battleship would shoot the drone or if it would shoot me being the controller. The footage here was from my attempts on Tuesday, and I would just engage me and it would ignore the drone completely, which evidently I then found out the second problem was the fact that the ship seems to have the agility and movement of a frigate. It was moving at like 2,700 meters a second. So I thought to myself at this point that the standard Doomsdays still need capacitor to fire. Micro warp drives also need capacitor to function. So my next ship choice was the Balgon. I include a ship scanner and a cargo scanner on it, just sheer curiosity to see if there was anything on the ship. Sure enough, when I did scan the ship, it did have a capacitor of 7,700. So I moved myself within range of the ship, dropped a couple of webs on the ship, along with some Nosses and newts. Sure enough, it didn't move anywhere fast, and I actually held my fire until I drained the capacitor down to only 4 units. I then opened fire, again, destroying the outer shield, and sure enough, the ship still unlocked me, and then relocked me, and fired the Doomsday. The next thing I tried was to bring out Mercurial. The idea being that if I fit a load of artillery to it, try to alpha the ship off in one volley. Sadly, no matter what I seemed to try, I could only destroy that outer shield layer in a single volley. Much to my dismay, it again resulted in the Doomsday firing off and hitting me and killing me. I actually did a variant of the original Mercurial tactic, that I managed to align myself to Celestial. I fired off a volley, destroyed the outer shield layer, my lock broke, and as the lock broke, I actually warped off to the other Celestial, and sure enough, I managed to warp away completely fine. But when I arrived at my destination, I found that the battleship had actually followed me in warp, and when I arrived at the destination, it then locked me and doomsdayed me again, and I died. So what I learned was that the secondary shield layer, as I said before, was the trigger for the Doomsday. The Doomsday doesn't appear to rearm for as long as you're in combat with it. It does recharge when the secondary shield layer seems to reset. When you destroy that secondary shield layer again, it does rearm and refire the Doomsday. When I was testing it on Sisi, I found that it was about 20 minutes from the Doomsday firing and destroying a ship. If it was then left alone and not shot at, about 20 minutes later, it would then recharge and rearm. So I've only really found a couple of different options really to survive at the moment. The ship does seem to be at least partially susceptible to ECM. You can jam it, and if you have a cycle where the jam is applied to the ship when the secondary shield layer breaks and the ship is jammed, it doesn't actually trigger the Doomsday because it can't lock you. The other alternative I found is that, again, similar to the Mercurial tactic, if you manage to destroy the outer shield layer, but then warp away before the Doomsday actually fires off, if you manage to warp to a location, or like a POS that has a shield, the Drifter battleship will follow you in warp, but when you arrive at the destination, it can't lock you while you're inside the POS shield, so it won't fire off the Doomsday. I then found that you can get a secondary person to then attack the battleship, and it won't actually trigger the Doomsday, it will just trigger the normal attack sequence for the ship. It probably is worth noting that it is still a battleship-sized target. It does move very fast, so as I said before, double webs or webbing drones is something I'd recommend. It does do a lot of turret-based damage. From what my resistance hardeners were adjusting to, it does seem to be omni damage. That's about it for now. I'm visiting Sisi at the moment as much as I can. I'm trying to keep people on Slack and Twitter as updated as much as possible. You can grab me on Twitter as General Stargazer. I've got the Twitter handle of @blind_hope. If you've got any questions, feel free to throw them my way. You can also get me on the Tweet Fleet Slack page. Alright, cheers.